Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. We've got another mock check ride today. And this guy, he's a little different, right? Most of the people you've seen so far, and most of the mock check rides that I do, their main goal, the student's end goal, is like airline pilot, flight instructor, cargo pilot, charter pilot, private pilot, some way of making money. A commercial pilot, probably flying some jets, right? Well, this guy, a little different. He just said, you know, airplanes are cool. I just want to be a pilot. I'll get my instrument rating eventually. And that's about it. And you know what? He's doing it. So don't worry about trying to make money as a pilot. If you don't want to make money as a pilot, don't make money as a pilot. It's still fun. So let's get into the mock check ride. This one does get cut a little short, right? We don't cover all of the material because, you know, the student had a something on their schedule that they had to go get to. But we did cover a lot of material, and this one was a lot of fun. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and let me know if you've got any questions. Just so I get it recorded, I always ask, you know, are you okay with me recording these and using it for content creation on like YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, etc.?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So I see that you're doing your training in a Diamond DA-20. So tell me about where you're training. You know, you don't have to get like into huge specifics or anything, but you know, what's gotten you to this point?
Yeah, I've always just wanted to fly. Like ever since I was a little kid, one of my neighbors like was building an airplane, and we drive by it like every time and see it, look in his garage and see like the progress. And I was like little, like 4 or 5 years old. So ever since then, like I wanted to do it. I just didn't know it was attainable until I like, you know, became an adult and started to like actually look into it, like have some extra money. And then I was like, okay, it is actually attainable. It's not something that's like a pie in the sky. So once I did some research, talked to a school that's close to me, I just went all in. And I have a couple of friends that are pilots too, so I got to pick their brain a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you say you got a couple friends pilots, are you saying you got a couple friends that are like airline pilots? Or, you know, I hate to use the term just because it like somewhat you know, but are they you know, private pilots, airline pilots, instrument pilots, commercial pilots, etc.?
I got one of my buddies. He's actually a pilot in the Marines. He flies those. Forget what they're called. They can like they have like 4 propellers. They can do like vertical takeoffs, and then they go. I don't remember the name of them, but they're huge planes. He flies, and then I have one of my friends. He actually rents one of the planes back to the school, so he's working on his commercial now. And then another guy that just passed his private. So. Yeah, not any like actual airline pilots or anything like that, but one guy's in the Marines doing it.
That is awesome. Is he flying the Osprey, the V-22?
Yeah, that's what they are, Ospreys. Yeah.
Oh,
they're sometimes parked at the school, like right outside of the school, and those propellers are massive. If you're standing next to them, I don't even know the size, but it's like got to be like 20, 30, 40 feet or something insane.
Yeah.
It's just huge. You look at it, you're like, what the heck?
Those things are absolutely massive. It's actually kind of funny. A lot of airlines don't view those things as twin engines because the engines are connected to each other. So if one dies, it'll still spin the other propeller. So like, yeah, I always thought that was ridiculous. Like, it's like, come on, like, are we really gonna like I think they can accomplish this. Like, so I always thought that was hilarious, but those things are pretty snazzy. So what's your end goal? Just doing this for fun, or?
I'd like to go for, like get instrument ready, get a little bit more safe, fly friends, family, just for fun, travel to, you know, nearby airports near me and do like little day trips, weekend trips, things like that.
Oh, that's awesome. You got the plans to buy or build an airplane?
I do have plans to buy. I just don't know what yet. There's so many makes and models and opinions that like I'm trying to find out what would work best for me. So I want like a 4-seater would be ideal.
An actual
like
4-seater.
Actually an actual 4. Yes, because like I've trained in a Cherokee Piper, and it's like if you get 2 people in the back, you're kind of screwed. Like with like the weight and balance, it doesn't really work out.
No.
Well.
Not really. It's like, do you want an actual 4-seater, or do you want just 4 seats that happen to be in the airplane?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't. Yeah.
One of my coworkers, I just found out he flies. He has a 182, and he says it's like perfect for 4-seater. And he was complaining that it's kind of slow, but mine, like the training aircraft I'm in, is like a lot slower than his. So
yeah. And I mean, 182s are pretty good. I don't really have any complaints about them. I mean, they burn a lot of gas. It'd probably be my only complaint about a 182. But then again, my airplane burns like 17 gallons an hour on takeoff, and then cruises at 10. So I can't really complain that much.
It's not the most aerodynamic or efficient.
No. But no, the 182s are a blast. I really like the 182 RGs, the retractable gears. Insurance companies don't like them because
interesting.
You belly up the dang thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
I'll look that one up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 182, but the gear retracts.
Yeah,
that's the RG. Yeah.
The RG. Okay.
Retractable gear. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good. I'll check that out. I imagine it's probably more performant and efficient since it doesn't have all that drag under there.
Yeah, I mean, there's one in my mechanic's hangar right now that's getting a bunch of work done, and I think he spent about $250 or $300 on it, like $300,000 on it. But it's also got an oxygen system and a turbo normalized engine and all kinds of other fancy stuff in it. So you could probably pick up one just a little bit cheaper. But cool. That's exciting. Now let's get straight into this private pilot mock check ride. I'm assuming you saw these from the fun little videos, either on YouTube, Instagram, or what have you. So I go through a fun little script that any DPE is going to go through. They're going to talk about 3 different outcomes of a check ride. They're going to ask for all of your documents. So what documents do you think a DPE is going to be asking for?
He's going to want to see that I have my medical, government issued like photo ID. So like my driver's license is what I would bring. He's also going to want to see my logbook and endorsements to make sure that I'm ready for, like my instructor signed off that I'm ready for this. And then I have like the minimum hours completed. I think I'm missing one. My student license or certificate. Yeah.
Yep. Student pilot certificate. Awesome. So just make sure all those are squared away. Logbook endorsements, the advisory circular that covers logbook endorsements is 6165 Hotel. If you want to go over that with your instructor, I don't know who your instructor is. I know even when I teach, I miss one every once in a while. So I have to go reference that advisory circular, and the appendix all the way in the back. It breaks it down Barney style for exactly what endorsements are needed. Then they're going to cover the 3 different outcomes of a check ride, right? We've got satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory is consistently within the standards. The expectation is not perfection. Okay. A lot of people think I need to be perfect. No, training. Sure. Let's try and make sure you are spot on, nuts on, because you're going to be nervous for your check rides. Let's make sure you're perfect when you're not nervous. So that by the time you are nervous, the little mess ups that you're going to get are going to be just fine. Right. Mm-hmm. It's not an opportunity for teaching or training. Okay, there is no second chances. There is no I screwed it up. But when it comes to the maneuvers, talk through it. Okay, if you are just doing dumb things and you don't talk through it in a smart way, I'm just assuming that you're doing dumb things. Okay, but if you're like, hey, I dropped 10 feet low, I'm correcting, I'm adding a little bit of power to compensate for that, and now I'm back up at my altitude. Now I'm finishing my steep turn. All right, awesome. Right. But if you just drop 10 feet low on a steep turn, I'm like, oh, they're low. Are they going to do anything about it? No, they didn't do anything about it. Unset. All right.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So if I recognize that there's I'm off, then if I'm like, okay, correcting for it, and okay, that's a good tip.
Yeah. Right. But again, as I said, there's no expectation for guidance. What gets a lot of students is they're so used to their instructors sitting next to them going, awesome, good, you got it. Awesome, good, you got it. And the DPE is over there. And that one, I have seen just mess students up so because they get in their own head. All right. The DPEs are instructed to not provide any feedback. They are purely there to evaluate and make sure you don't die. Okay. So then let's get into unset, right? Unsatisfactory, obviously consistently outside of the standards. You don't know safety related information. You don't know how to respond to a fire. You don't know how to respond to an engine failure. You freeze when it comes to emergencies. You end up in a steep spiral practicing steep turns. You end up risking a pilot deviation, damage to the aircraft, damage to another person, property, etc. Right? The example I use is over at UND, the University of North Dakota. They had a student that didn't set the parking brake well enough, and the airplane started to roll away as they were doing their after start checklist. Okay. Not good. It like sliced up a whole nother airplane, and the instructor had to drag another student through that airplane that got sliced up so that they didn't get hit by the prop. Unset. All right. I don't think we really got to explain why that is unset. But it's not that hard to miss that. Setting that parking brake, depending on the aircraft, it's pretty easy for that thing to not be set properly. So just making sure that you don't miss those little things. I've had to unset people on stage checks for not having taxi diagrams when they're taxiing out. Right? And then we've got incomplete. The regulation that covers all the reasons for incomplete would be 6143 Bravo. All right. And it's things like aircraft airworthiness, safety of flight, weather, ran out of time. Student unprepared is not appropriate. Okay. I've had students show up to stage checks at UND saying, sorry, I didn't have time to do my cross country planning. We can go do the rest of the maneuvers though, right? I'm like, no, you showed up unprepared. It's unset. Would you like to continue the stage check so that you can at least knock out those maneuvers? But at this point in time, you showed up unprepared. This is an unsatisfactory performance on this stage check. Okay. Then what I always told a lot of my students when I was doing their stage checks is it's more paperwork if you fail. It's more difficult for me if you fail. I'm on your side. I want you to pass. Okay. But remember, it's your check ride to fail. If you're tired, if you need to go get a drink of water, you need a snack, go do so. If the wind is exceeding your personal limitations, stand your ground. Okay. Then they're going to ask, have you read the ACS and you understand the standards you're being held to?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I had that yesterday. There was the gusts were up to like 19 and we had a crosswind of like 13 or 14. And like, me and the instructor went out and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I wouldn't have done even close to this on a check ride. I would just reschedule. Like it was just too much. There was too much unstable air when we were doing our maneuvers, and it was good for practicing like turned around a point, but it wasn't fun for me to like, if I was having to demonstrate like, near perfection, like I want better conditions. So.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, I've heard of students, they, the DPE or like it's a crosswind of like 12 knots. And the student's like, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. And the DPE is like, well, is that a limitation of the aircraft? And they're like, well, no. And then they go and fail their check ride because they can't maintain center line. Don't let the DPE bully you into continuing the check ride. Okay.
Okay.
So let's get into some systems. I cover systems first because like if you don't know the airplane that you're in, the rest of the check ride is probably not going to go that well, right? So what can you tell me about the engine that's equipped in this Diamond DA-20?
Yeah, so it's a Continental is the maker, IO 240, so it's 240 cubic inches. It's fuel injected, naturally aspirated, 4-cylinder engine, 4-stroke. So the last thing, it's air cooled as well, and it makes like 125 horsepower at 2,800 RPMs. But I've never seen it get to 2,800 RPMs because it's like the one I'm flying is like was made in like 2000, 2001. It gets like 2,500 max. So I have no idea what the horsepower is, but according to the POH, it's supposed to get up to 2,800 RPM. And I'm at sea level, so I don't know what's going on with the engine. Old.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be old. Now, you brought up 4 strokes. What are those 4 strokes?
4 strokes. I'm not sure.
Okay,
sure
so
what those are.
Intake, compression, power, and exhaust.
Intake. Compression, power, exhaust. Okay.
All right. So intake, it's bringing air and fuel into the cylinder. Okay. Piston is moving down, bringing air and fuel into the cylinder. Compression, both valves are closed. Piston's moving up, compressing that fuel and air mixture. It's just like a balloon. Have you ever popped a balloon that had a little bit of air or popped a balloon that had a lot of air? That's why we're compressing it, right?
All right. Okay.
So when we compress it right up at the top, spark plug ignites. We'll talk about where the spark plug gets its power from later. When it ignites that fuel and air mixture, causing the power stroke, piston moving down. Once it reaches the bottom, then there's the start of the exhaust stroke. It's pushing that piston back up, pushing the exhaust out through the exhaust valve. Okay. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow is another way to memorize it.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Now, how much fuel does this thing carry? Or first off, what fuel can you put in this?
We use 100 low lead. That's what's at the airport, the blue one. But I think you can also use the aviation gas, the 100.
Okay.
Too.
Do you know what color the aviation gas is?
I think it's green.
It is green.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now, what octane would the red stuff be?
That's a red. I've never seen it before. I'm not sure.
It's 87. It's meant for like old Cherokees. You brought up a Cherokee. That's why I asked, because like a lot of those old Cherokee 140s can run 87.
Okay. Yeah, I have like the beginning of my training. I have like 20 hours in a Cherokee, and I think do they also take 100 like generally?
Yeah, you can always go up. You can't go down.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be part of. Yeah. You know what? Let's move on. How much gas can it carry?
No, I'm glad you mentioned it. I never knew the red. So this one does. The tanks are 24 and a half gallons, but usable is like 20, so 0.5 unusable there.
All right. I just want to correct you. You said usable 20, and then you said unusable 0.5. I'm assuming you meant 24 usable.
24. My bad. Yeah. 24 usable. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, do you know why some of it's usable and some of it's not?
Yeah, like at the bottom of the tanks, where it actually like the fuel flow comes from, there's like a little gap. It doesn't sit quite at the bottom.
Okay.
So there's a little gap, and that extra fuel just kind of sits down there.
Do you know why there's that little gap?
Well, I know sometimes like stuff can get in engines, like debris or moisture and things like that. So I think it can kind of like sit there as a buffer to not pull in like nasty debris into the engine.
That's exactly what it is. One of my 3 engine failures was because someone designed the airplane and such. It was a home built aircraft, but they put the fuel pickup at the bottom of the tank, and rust plugged up the intake when we went to rotate and take off.
That's not good.
No.
Yeah. This plane, like the way we check the fuel quantities, we put a stick in the tank. So I imagine like that stick has dirt in it every time we put it in there. So it's gonna be nasty. That's scary though about the rust. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, your tank isn't metal, I believe. I think your tank it's either composite tank or it's rubber lined, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. This was a home-built airplane from the 80s. I stopped getting in people's home-built airplanes after that. How much oil does this thing carry?
Max is 6 quarts.
Okay, and what's the minimum you'd be willing to take off with?
For me, I always get it to 5, but it can go down to 4. But I think that's too low, because if you're taking off at 4, you might have some burn off and get into like less than 4, and that's below the minimum.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but now I don't expect you to know this off of the top of your head, but I'd like to know that you can find it if you needed to, right? So you're down in the Carolinas, so it's pretty toasty down there. You're right. Now,
yes.
If you were to try and operate this airplane somewhere colder, right? Somewhere, let's say you wanted to take this airplane to Alaska, what oil would you recommend for this airplane?
Yeah, you would want to go, if you get colder, you would want to change the weight of the oil. And they have that in the POH. I think it goes, the colder you get, the lower the weight. So the numbers go lower. So right now, I think we put in 40 and 40 weight, and you would go down to like a 30 or a 20. But you'd want to look in the POH for sure to get the right number, but basically the viscosity has to change in order to account for the colder temperature. You don't want it to be like too thick of oil in the colder temperature.
Now, what section of the POH would you start to look in?
For that, I have it printed out next to me. I think it might be under like the general section. I think like it's where all the like specs are.
Yep.
Like the oil tank and.
Yep. So
Yeah,
section
general.
1.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And it's kind of funny because those look a lot like just car weights, right? It goes from 550 to like 2060, but it ranges in the 520 and 10W30 and stuff. It's kind of funny to see how light the oil is for a diamond.
These get really hot or really cold. Like they're hard to just keep in the middle unless you're at cruise. Like so you're constantly having to figure out how, like sometimes me and my instructor have to do slow flight just to build some heat back up. And it's like a hot day. It's a normal hot day, and then it gets into the like close to the yellow for the oil temperature. So it's I wouldn't want to operate this plane on like a normal mode because you're just gonna have to be fighting with the temperature the whole time.
Well, the airplane is like a lot of people. I fell victim to this as an instructor, thinking instruction falls well within normal operations. But like, let's be honest. How often in normal operations are you like doing slow flight in an airplane or stalls or steep turns? Again, it falls within the normal category, right? It falls within the normal limitations of the airplane. But I fell victim to this because I was, this is one of my other 3 engine failures. There was this airplane that the fuel PSI was at like 0.5. And if you read through the POH, it says normal operation, 0.5 is just fine. Stalls aren't normal operation. And the engine died during stalls. So, sure, the Diamond's really slow. It doesn't burn a whole lot of gas. Great time builder.
They're fun. They get a lot of vertical airspeed, which is nice. You can get like 1,000 feet per minute, so it's cool.
Oh yeah, these things. Doesn't Diamond? I feel like a lot of people say that Diamonds are kind of like gliders, because they have that really long, narrow wing. But they're especially when you're outside looking at it, like just the wingspan is huge compared to like everything else. That all the low wing aircraft nearby, they're all like little tiny stubby wings. Oh yeah, the Cherokees. I remember the first time I saw a Cherokee 140, I was like, "That's an airplane." Like that's like the width of it's like the width of 2 Volkswagen Beetles.
Yes.
Oh God. All right. So, are there any hydraulics on this airplane?
I think the brakes, I'm pretty sure, are hydraulic. I've never looked it up in the POH, but I believe they are.
Okay. Now, so we said that the brakes are hydraulic. So if you went up to the airplane and the brake system was leaking, what fluid would you expect to see on the ground? What color?
Do they just use regular brake fluid?
No, they're going to use.
It's a different kind. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure then, because if you go to like your car and if you ever bleed the brakes and all that, it's like that clear color.
Yeah, it's like that clear, almost kind of yellowy color. Brake fluid for airplanes is red. I'm just making sure that your airplane doesn't actually use like .4. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about. I'm seeing
hydraulic fluid. MILH. Yeah.
It's using hydraulic fluid. So it's going to be red. All right. If you come up to the airplane and there's red fluid on the ground, the brakes are leaking. Are we going to go fly this airplane?
It's going to be real hard to like slow down. So no, like you're not going to be able to safely taxi or land or aboard like a takeoff or anything.
Yep.
Aerodynamic braking is not good enough for that.
No, it's definitely not. What are the primary flight controls on this airplane?
Yes, we have the ailerons, the rudder, and the elevator.
Okay. What about some secondary flight controls?
Secondary flaps. We have trim, and I think that's it.
All right. So how is your trim actuated?
How's it actuated?
Yeah. So you remember from your Cherokee time, right? Your little trim is that little hand crank up on the ceiling, right? So how's this one work?
This one has like an electronic button over by the throttle right under it. And there's a indicator on your dash that says basically the level that it's at. So if it's neutral or if it's up or down, it gives you an indication of that.
Okay.
So it's all electronic. It's got to be then because that switch.
It is electronic, right? Now, is there an actual trim tab on this aircraft?
No, I don't think there actually is. I think it's just like the Cherokee has an actual trim tab, like a physical. You can see it; it's mounted. No, I don't think it's actually a physical thing because I've never seen it walking around the plane. So,
all right. So this one, just because it is such a unique one, I definitely have because this. If I was a DP, I'd see this and go, "There ain't no way he read this." I'm gonna ask him all about this one, right?
Double click on it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. It's page 7-6 in your POH. All right. Trim system. The rocker switch located on the center console behind the throttle quadrant is a digital trim indicator is located on the upper instrument panel. You covered that. Perfect. I love it. It's because you've used it, right? Mm-hmm. The switch controls an electrical actuator beside the vertical push rod in the vertical stabilizer. The actuator applies a load to compression springs on the elevator push rod. The trim circuit breaker is located on the panel, blah, blah, blah. So what that's saying, though, is you've got this little rod that's putting tension on a spring on your elevator.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So it's actually applying, there's a spring that's actually back there applying force to your elevator, as opposed to a trim tab.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just the elevator's the big trim. So it just adjusts it up or down a little bit or adds attention to it.
Yep. And only thing I want to, really bring up is that's a spring, right? If that spring breaks, your indicator may still move because your indicator's just it's not measuring tension on the spring. Your indicator is measuring the position of that electrical actuator. So if you're sitting here, I can't trim. Why can't I trim? My indicator's moving. Why is the airplane not trimming out? Your spring broke. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And that's just why it's important to really know your systems is stop using a system if it's broken and why is it broken? Right. Are you in did you lose your control push rod or did you just lose the spring? Right. If I started wiggling my trim wheel in a Cherokee and I'm like, hey, why is this not working? I know a cable snapped and now I've got a cable back there flapping around. All right. I also have a little trim tab that might be fluttering in the wind. I need to get on the ground now. But in your aircraft, if it's just that spring that broke, airplane, there's nothing back there fluttering around. There's nothing acting weird. There's no control surfaces that are outside of my control. Airplane's still generally safe. Right. There is just
your arm just might get tired from holding the pressure.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
nice.
What about the flaps? How are these controlled?
The flaps are also controlled electronically. There's a switch. You can do there's a landing configuration and then there's a takeoff configuration.
Awesome. I'm happy with that. I always love to see that a fancy airplane, the way that you lock the control surfaces is with the seatbelt. Love spending $300,000 on an airplane to then not have any kind of actual control lock.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to set, by the way, with the it's sometimes just bent and doesn't work perfectly too. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. Now your airplane, as we talked about, it's fuel injected, correct?
Yes.
All right. What are some of the benefits of a fuel injected airplane?
It's more efficient. It's not susceptible to some of the carburetor limitations like icing. Those are the main ones I can think of.
Okay. More efficient, no carburetor icing. solid.
Mhm.
Throttle response is another good one.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yeah, so
Right.
more performant. You could probably say it like that. Okay.
Now, what are some of the downsides of a fuel injected system?
Um, well, there is still risk of icing, I believe. Like, but there's no way to like correct it if you like for if you had a carbureted system, you could have carb heat and then correct. So I think there's like that slim chance of like an icing situation, but it's really rare. Requires probably a lot of moisture, really cold, and then you don't have a way to correct it,
Okay.
except for land as soon as you can and get to like warmer air, I guess.
Now, your airplane's most likely going to end up with induction icing or impact icing, or icing right at the front of your airplane. You say
Okay, so
there's nothing you could do to try and get more air into this engine if you ended up with icing in your intake system.
you could. There's an alternate air source, so it pulls air from the cabin. You could flip over to that.
Okay, that's the solution for induction icing in your aircraft.
Okay.
All right.
Not necessarily to go low, so you'd flip the alternate air first.
Yeah, you'd get your alternate air first, and then if you still got nothing, then start worrying like, hey, I need to get down.
Okay.
Right, because it says right here, alternate air control selection selects a secondary induction air intake in case of restriction in the primary air intake.
Okay.
What's ICE? A restriction in the primary air intake.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Now, you said that, is there anything else? You're down in a warm area. Have you ever tried to start this thing when it's hot? Like another student just got done with the airplane and then you hop right in it and you try and start it?
Yeah, it's really difficult
Right?
to start it like that. Yeah.
Do you know why?
Well, the heat is causing some problem. Is my guess.
Have you ever heard of vapor lock?
Yeah, from your video, one of your videos, but that's the only time.
Well, that's what's happening is vapor lock.
Okay.
All right. Can you, based on the video that you saw, do you got a solid understanding of what vapor lock is, or you need me to go through it?
Yeah, could we go through it?
Yeah, no problem. So vapor lock, right? You've got fuel lines that run over the top of your engine. Have you ever taken the cowling off and looked up there?
Just the oil, just to check the oil. There's a little porthole for it thing.
All right.
But not the.
Let me go
not the
find it
rest.
real quick.
The Cherokee was cool because you could actually lift the whole cover off and see it every time.
Yeah, here I'm trying to find that. There it is. All right, so you're seeing that, right? That's
Yep, I got it.
That's a 6-cylinder version of your engine, but potato. All right. Actually, there's a whole lot different on this engine, but we can go over it anyway. These are your fuel injection lines right here. These metal lines that run along the top, right? They're metal. What happens when I apply heat to fuel? It evaporates, right?
Evaporates. Yeah, it exactly changes the phase.
Yep.
Yeah.
Changes from a liquid to a gas. So can I compress a liquid at the pressures we're operating at?
Can you compress a liquid at the pressures we're operating at? Yeah.
Well,
I would think so.
Can I make a liquid take up less volume by applying pressure?
No, it'll can't happen.
Yeah, it'll move along in the chamber that it's operating in, right?
Yeah.
That's your fuel injection system. Now,
Okay.
if I have a gas in that system, like evaporated fuel, can I compress a gas?
Certainly.
Yeah, I can certainly, especially at the pressures that we're operating at. We can make a gaseous fluid or a gaseous matter take up less volume that it's currently occupying. Well, that's what's happening in these fuel injection lines. I turn that fuel pump on, my fuel pressure is getting measured from right up here at the top. Okay. It's not measuring what's in the lines right here. It's only measuring at this little spider right here. So I'm seeing on my fuel pressure gauge, I got plenty of pressure. I'm under the impression that this damn thing should start. The only thing is all I did was compress this evaporated fluid in the lines.
Okay.
No fuel actually got to the cylinder.
And that's horrible.
Yeah. I've seen it happen to, well, I haven't seen it. I've heard of it happening to other people in like experimental airplanes that can run much lower octane fuels. Like they can run just like regular old pump gas. Right. Mm. And once they get up to high altitudes and high temperatures, less pressure on the fuel actually evaporated in the lines and the engine died at cruise.
And I don't think it would be an easy restart. Like you can figure out in the air how to restart that. It's prime it maybe and just
fuel pump on and try and let the engine cool down so that that fuel can recondense. It happened to me a couple times in my airplane, not in cruise, but just after like starting it or, but then again, I cleaned my fuel injectors and did all kinds of other stuff to try and like prevent it from happening. And now it doesn't happen as often, but vapor lock sucks. Vapor lock is terrible.
So for this issue, like if you have a carbureted engine, are you still having to deal with like as much pressure concerns, like the fuel pressure?
No,
or is that all? The whole system's relieved from that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean
that's another downside. Is like when it's cold, the pressure is really high, and you have to wait and wait and wait for it to warm up on a real cold day, and you're burning fuel just waiting sometimes 15, 20 minutes just for you to get up to enough speed to do your run up.
Now, are you talking about oil pressure or are you talking about fuel pressure?
Oh, never mind. This is different. This is oil pressure.
Yeah. Because that's very common. That's very common. And that's got nothing to do whether it's fuel injected or carbureted.
Right.
Okay. If you're on a cold morning, like my airplane, I have to deal with that all the time because I there's not a whole lot of airflow around my engine, so I end up having to use thicker oil because the engine gets warmer and blah blah blah. But then when I first start it, it's cold. And I'm waiting 20 minutes for the airplane to warm up so I can do a run up.
Okay.
But fuel injected or carbureted airplanes, as you said, you don't have to deal with the fuel pressure as much. As I was saying, that one that I had the engine failure in, it was a carbureted Rotax. It needed 0.5 psi. All right. There's certain Cessnas, like older Cessnas that are carbureted that don't have fuel pumps other than like the auxiliary fuel pump.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's just using gravity, pushing it down to the carburetor.
Right.
Okay. You do have an electric fuel pump. It's intended as your primer, all that jazz, right? So you've got, what can you tell me about the electrical system in this aircraft?
Yeah. So for the electrical system, it has a 12-volt battery and it has a generator, a 40 amp generator. And I think the whole breaker, like the whole system has a 50 amp breaker, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. All right. What does your generator warning light tell you?
I've seen it on before. During like the startup, that's actually one of the tests.
Okay. And
I think it might be to do with the switches, like not having the switches on, or like something to do with like it's not generating at the moment.
Yeah, no output from the generator.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you haven't started yet, or there's a failure.
What I'm getting at is that it's not measuring discharge from your battery. It's only measuring output from your generator. Okay. And I know that sounds like a weird, like, difference to kind of point out. The only thing that's going to show discharge from the battery is your ammeter. The only reason I really bring that up is if you've got something that's pulling too much power and discharging your battery, your generator failure light might not illuminate because the generator's still producing power. Make sense?
I see. It does. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely on one of the checklists at the beginning. You want to make sure that that's on before you actually start the engine, that the generator light's working, basically. Make sure you're not generating power. And then you start up the engine, and then you check if the generator light comes off. That's like the second step.
Yep, that's like.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point though. A big distinction between the two. Like just it's not generating power, or it's generating power, but you just have to check your ammeter to validate that it's enough, or if your battery is draining. Okay.
Now, how much if your generator warning light came on? You know, just roughly how much battery you got left? How much time?
It's not much. It's going to be like if we're not generating any more power, we're just on battery. It's got to be like somewhere like less than 30 minutes, I would think. So something like that. I would say I would just pick like probably 20 to 30 minutes and plan accordingly with that number.
Okay. Now, your POH does say 30, but bringing it back to 20 is a good idea because, you don't know the age of that battery. Right. It could be as old as, an iPhone 7, and we know an iPhone 7 doesn't hold a charge worth a damn, right?
Nope.
No. So just keep that in mind. It does say if you're pulling 20 amps, it's gonna last 30 minutes. Okay. What that tells me is you probably have a 10 amp hour battery in your airplane. Okay. Now where could you look to see how much amps you're pulling?
When the ammeter tell you that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what the ammeter would tell you.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you had a complete electrical failure, right, you're only on battery. What are you going to do? Not necessarily run through the checklist, but like, are you landing at the field right beneath you? Are you continuing on for 20 minutes?
Sure. Well, I could extend the time. So if I have like all lights on for some reason, if I was doing maneuvers, I would look at that, like turning off some electrical systems that aren't necessary for me to like get back into the airfield safely or just to fly safely. I could try resetting it too. Flipping it on off, check if there's any breakers that have popped. That's another indicator if something's popped. Like I probably don't want to like restart things because that could be an issue. There could be some fault somewhere and it's actually popped it for a reason to protect the system. So I wouldn't try to restart it on or off if I notice any breakers that are open. And then, if that doesn't work, then I will probably, I'll have to head back to the airfield, rather quickly. Another thing I thought of first is, if restarting it doesn't fix it, I'm probably just going to immediately start turning around too. And, letting ATC know, like, I'm coming in, it's not an emergency, but I'm in a situation where it could become an emergency if I don't figure this out quickly because I won't be able to communicate with them. My radios will fail in 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. Are you going to die?
No.
So is that an emergency?
No.
IFR?
If I can't.
Yeah, it's an emergency.
You need your instruments. You need your electrical for that. No, it's not an emergency.
Yeah. Just think of how many Cubs are out there with absolutely no electrical system and they're out there hand propping that damn thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you ain't never going to catch me hand propping shit. But, I mean, there's countless people out there operating completely without any electrical system. The reason I bring it up, somebody actually failed an interview as an instructor because they got asked that question. What are you going to do if your battery dies or if your generator dies? And they went, I'm declaring an emergency and landing right beneath me. And they're like, is the airplane going to fall out of the sky? Like, are you going to die? Like,
no.
Like that scene from The Hangover. But did you die? Is it a concern? Yeah, we need to keep an eye on it. Does it reduce our safety margin? Of course. But not to a point in which I need to be over here like, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I lost all my electrical system. I need priority to the, right? Because what am I going to look for from the tower if I lose my radios?
Yeah, you're going to look for the light gun signals.
All right.
And I even got this from you. I never considered it getting a backup handheld radio. I think I heard it on one of your videos. That's on my list of something to get because just an extra tool to have with you, like, and keep it in your flight bag, and then you can have that as a backup.
All right. You could also, do you have Bluetooth on your headset?
No, I don't. I don't have a fancy one yet.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
one day.
One day.
But yeah, so you can call people, right?
Exactly. Call the tower. Just if you got Bluetooth on your headphones, call the tower. I know that one time that I lost communication with, I was actually flying my airplane home. I tried to call Kansas City Center on my phone, but I didn't have enough signal because like I was on the other side of a storm from them. My radios weren't strong enough to punch the storm. So I had my buddy, I was like, yo, just Google Kansas City Center phone number and just give me the damn number. But I didn't have, like, neither of us had enough signal to actually accomplish it.
And it's hard to hear on your phone too. Like if you just hold it up to your ear. I had a situation where I was trying to close a flight plan, and I was in Myrtle Beach. It was a night flight, and Atlanta, I think they were the controlling center for that, or they were the ones to contact. I couldn't contact them. No one was answering. So they ended up sending and trying to call me later on while I was flying. They ended up sending like search and rescue, and I was trying to listen to them on the earphone. My instructor was helping me out. We eventually got it figured out, but like, yeah, it was impossible to hear. I had it on speaker right next to my ear like that. So Bluetooth headset, that's the way to go. Like if that ever happens, or like you said, back up to call someone if you need to call tower.
Exactly. And I mean, you can get like Bluetooth dongles for your headsets. Well, you're in a Diamond. Your Diamond doesn't have Bluetooth in its audio panel?
I'll need to look.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But maybe.
Because, like, I mean, it's a Diamond. Like, come on. Like, if it doesn't, like, what's your problem?
I know, right?
Like, even I have an aux port in my airplane. So,
yeah, I'm going to check.
Right. But back to the electrical failure. If I have a complete electrical failure, as we kind of got to this point, is the engine going to die?
No, engine will keep going. Magnetos. Okay. Yeah. All
right. Now, I know I made this joke before, but isn't Magneto an X-Men? What the hell's a Magneto?
Magnetos, it basically like keeps the engine like firing through induction.
Awesome, right? Yeah. It's magnets swinging inside a coil. There's primary and secondary current, circuits and whatnot. Either way, magnets swinging inside a coil, just like back from middle school science class, where you get the magnet and you run it along the nail with the wires wrapped around it, and you light up a light bulb, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is so fancy." That's exactly how magnetos work. Just a lot higher voltage. If anybody ever like wants to play with one by like hooking up a drill to the drive circuit and wants you to hold the wires, don't.
Probably a easy way to die.
You probably won't die, but you definitely piss yourself. All right, so let's get into some limitations. Solid systems. There's just a few like kind of gotcha ones that might even be beyond just private pilot. I just don't want, you hear of some DPEs that they're just looking for any reason to fail you. So I just want to make sure, right? Knowing how that trim works, since it is such a unique trim system, like I've never seen another airplane with a trim system like that, right? Airliners, they're moving the whole vertical stab back there. You've seen the trim tab on your aircraft. I've got a split elevator where a section of my elevator is my whole trim tab. I've never seen any other aircraft use a kind of like tension loading on your elevator. Okay.
Yeah. I'll redo that section a bit more.
Awesome. So let's get into some airspeeds. Now, what airspeed should I never exceed in this aircraft?
Never exceed. That's going to be the red line at the top. It's 164.
All right. Now, go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
All right. Now, if I'm in smooth air, what speed can I exceed?
That's the yellow arc. So up to like I think it goes all the way up to right below 164, so 163.
Okay.
So you can go over and you can operate in smooth air up to the yellow arc.
or in the yellow line, right? Up to the top of the yellow
Up to the
line.
red.
Yep.
Right.
Now what's the bottom of that? What's the bottom of that yellow arc?
The bottom is the normal operating range.
All right. And well, what speed is it?
Oh, the bottom of the yellow arc, 118.
118, right? Now, what is the bottom of the green arc depicting?
The bottom of the green arc, so that's your normal operating range. So the bottom is going to be your stall speed with no flaps.
Stall speed and clean configuration. What's the top of the white arc depicting?
That's your stall speed.
Top.
I'm sorry, no, the top. That's your max speed you can be at full flaps.
Okay. So what's the max speed that I can introduce my takeoff notch of flaps?
100.
Okay. Is that depicted on your airspeed indicator at all?
No, it's not.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can be in landing up to the white arc and then the takeoff up to 100. Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Now, what is maneuvering speed in this aircraft?
Maneuvering speed, the VA, it's above 100, like a 105 or 106.
It's 106.
Like, right. 106.
All right.
That's right.
What does that, if I am below maneuvering speed, what does that allow me to do?
Yeah, if you're below it, you're able to move one of the three primary flight controls in like full deflection and not damage anything. But you shouldn't be like making abrupt changes, abrupt control movements with multiple of the flight controls. So basically, you can operate the airplane safely. And actually, I think I'm getting that confused with the like. I think I'm getting it confused with another airspeed, the one I just explained.
Yeah. So a lot of people they make the mistake of like merging VNO and VA.
And that's what I was merging with. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So VA, I can make one full abrupt flight control deflection without risking damage to the aircraft. That is the end of VA.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can go all the way back. I can go all the way forward, one or the other, right? I can't maneuver or VNO. That's just your smooth operating speed, right? I can be above VNO in smooth air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You're not going to do a full deflection. That's when you can damage if you're at like 117 or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. And your airplane's so light, it doesn't like they don't display it as it changing with speed. So it can change with speed. Do you know why?
That's based on like your weight. Or like your load factor.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So changing with weight, not speed. Sorry.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple emergencies, right?
Okay.
Some emergencies need an immediate response, right? Some emergencies, you can reference a checklist. It's up to you to kind of decide, okay, which one of these is I need to have them memorized and which one of these is I have time to pull out a checklist. Fires, don't wait for a checklist. Generator failures will wait for a checklist. So sometimes I will refer to the checklist is the appropriate response. Okay. I refer to them as memory items. Diamond doesn't do memory items in their POHs for some reason. So let's get into it, right? Now, what are you going to do if you have an engine failure during your takeoff run? Haven't left the ground yet.
Yeah. During takeoff. So like the situation I always think of, like in my mind, if I were to run into this, if I don't see the RPMs at the RPM that I want them to be, so it might even just be that the engine's not powering efficiently. It's not getting to my 2,800, realistically like 2,500 RPMs. I'm gonna reduce my speed. So take my throttle out. First thing, start braking because I need to slow down. Aerodynamic braking if I can. And then just like if there's no fire, right? This is
It's just failure. Engine just failed during
failure.
your takeoff
So
run.
I don't need to shut the engine off immediately for like a fire situation. So I'm gonna leave the mixture where it's at. I think, and then just slow down and exit off the runway.
All right.
And then figure out what happened.
Now, let's say this happened and you were taking off of like 1,000-foot runway, right? Your airplane needs about 600 feet to accelerate and to stop, right? So we need about 1,200 feet if I was to get to a takeoff speed and then slow down to zero. Take me about 1,200 feet. Well, here I am at a 1,000-foot runway. So what else do you think I might need to do if I'm going to end up off the end of the runway?
Prepare, shut the engine down and prepare for potentially a crash. So you're gonna take the throttle out, engine the fuel shut off. You're gonna take that out. Mixture throttle, fuel shut off. You're going to turn off the fuel pump, and then any electrical systems you can power those down as well. And then for this one, we have there's a glass breaker. So get ready for the glass breaker in case you got to get out, or if you can't get the latches undone. Awesome.
The way your POH does it, it's just throttle, idle, brakes is required, flaps, bring them up. All right.
Okay.
Get the weight on the wheels.
Yeah.
With my flaps down, I start generating lift at lower speeds. Right. If I get my flaps up, I get more weight on the wheels, helps with my braking. Right.
Okay.
Believe it or not, a 17% slippage on tires is like the most optimal slow, right? Anything greater than 17% slippage, it's going to take you longer to stop than if the tires were still rolling, right?
Okay.
So with my flaps down, I have more weight on the wings, gives me a greater opportunity for my tires to slip. Okay. Then mixture idle, ignition switch off, generator battery, master switch off. Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to prevent a fire.
Exactly.
Okay. Right. Not bad though. Not bad. All right. Now, what am I going to do? Trying to find it specifically in your POH. So, if you have an engine fire during start.
Engine fire during start. Okay. I'm going to have to act immediately. So I want to take the fuel out of the system to prevent more fire. If it's an engine fire, if it's electrical, I'm going to want to turn off the electrical system, basically. So if let's just say it's an engine fire, I'm going to want to take the throttle mixture out, fuel cut off. So it's not getting any supplied fuel anymore. The line's sees there. And then get out of the plane. Or you might have a second to turn off electrical too, but just get out.
Yep.
There's a fire extinguisher, so I could, if I got the fuel turned off, I want to save my plane. If I want to be a firefighter, I got that available for me too.
Awesome. Right. So your airplane is a little different than like that Cherokee. Cherokee and its POH, it's going to tell you keep cranking, trying to get that fire pulled up into the engine, right? Your airplane's like, nah, fuck that. Fuel shut off, out, cabin heat off, mixture off, generator ignition off, get out of the airplane.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Wasn't too bad. Just try to clean it up a little bit. Because remember, you need to be able to do these in an emergency. All right. Okay. We're in a fairly calm environment. I'm assuming a climate controlled office. And you've got these. Okay. Right. We need to be confident that when I say engine fire on start, you're like fuel shut off, cabin heat closed, mixture out, gen battery off, ignition off. I'm getting the hell out. All right. It's that quick. Okay. When you bring up like the fire extinguisher, yeah, school's airplane, nah, let it burn. You don't get paid for that. Your airplane, nah, we're going down with the ship. My airplane catches fire. I'm going down with the ship. We are. Oh God. 1 of 38. I'm not letting that thing burn to the ground.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, we covered generator failure, right? What are we going to do?
Generator failure.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to restart it.
We're going to refer to the checklist.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said earlier. Yes, refer to the checklist. Gen failure. So this you're talking about okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Right? Because are we going to die when my generator enunciator light comes on? No. Do I need to make any immediate actions?
Not immediate.
No.
It's not emergency.
It's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to prevent is there's been some people that have actually gotten to like the cargo and airline operations, and they are still in this point where like, I need to press buttons immediately. I need to do things immediately. And they've ended up in terrible situations. Okay. I don't know if you heard about the Atlas crash where they buried the airplane into the ground at 7,000 feet per minute.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear about that one. That's crazy.
Yeah. They flew the airplane into the ground. They were completely in control of the aircraft the entire time. They didn't slow down and just read what was going on. It's a little more complicated to get into the exact details, but that's why I kind of drill this, like, refer to the checklist if it's not an I'm gonna die situation, right?
Okay.
If they would have just slowed down and read their flight mode enunciator, which is a little thing at the top that tells them like what mode their autopilot's in, they would have went, shit, I pressed the wrong button. And then flew the airplane just fine.
Right.
Okay. So I drill the just go if it's not a fire, if like parts aren't coming off the airplane, go to the checklist. Okay. Things like engine failure, right? We need a little bit of a flow for an engine failure, right? Fuel shut off, mixtures, adjust, fuel pump on, throttle as necessary, right? Of course, you've got your ABCs, right? What are we going to do if we have an engine failure?
There's two, I think, checklists in there. I'm gonna definitely refer to the checklist, but the ones that I remember, if it's windmilling, then I'm gonna do full throttle, mixture full, test the Magnetos, make sure I didn't hit the fuel shut off, alternate air, try that as well. And try that basically twice is like what I would do personally, just in case I miss a step, and then refer to the checklist and just validate things aren't going well, or like that I got everything in there.
Awesome. Only thing I'd kind of bring up, right? Engine failure during flight. I teach the ABCs. Have you ever heard of that?
I think my instructors mentioned that.
Yeah. Airspeed, best place to land, checklist. Right. I guess some people put like DE and whatnot. I don't know what the D and E is about, but ABC. Airspeed, best place to land, checklist. There's nothing stopping you from running through a flow while running through your ABCs. Right. So in my airplane, if my engine was to die, I'd immediately reach back, push out everything full forward because all of my stuff is up on the ceiling. And then I'd reach down and then I'd grab my yoke, reach with my left hand and put my fuel pump on as I'm pulling back on the stick to slow down to my best glide. Nothing's stopping me from doing all of that, right? That's why a flow is so...
you don't want to lose altitude is the only thing, and you don't want your airspeed to drastically change. You just want to, best glide. What was the B? Airspeed?
Airspeed, right, which is best glide. B is best place to land. Pick one. Don't him and haw. Don't go, maybe that one, because guess what? Now you're not going to make it to either of them. Okay? Look beneath you. The amount of times I have failed a student's engine with an airport underneath us, and then they aim for a field. It's hilarious. Like, you're over there doing this stage check, trying not to giggle, but it's hilarious. That like we've got this big old G1000 in front of us where they can see right to the right of us that there's an airport underneath us. And they're like,
and you can just circle and take your time and restart the engine. And you got all that time left.
Yeah. And they're like, I'm going to go for the cow field. I'm like, okay, sure. So just keep your situational awareness. That's really all I'm getting at. Right. Awesome. I know there's nothing specifically called out as memory items, but I would just read through your POH emergencies. Just make sure you've got a good solid, like, hey, if I say the engine's going to die, right? You've got a solid, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. The way I got all my memory items done for every single type rating I've gotten and every single airplane I've flown that I have needed to get memory items down for, I make flashcards and then I give them to somebody to throw at me so that I can just be randomly surprised by an emergency, because that's when they're going to happen.
Yeah.
So like my wife will be wandering around with my flashcards and she'll just like, and just yeet one at my face while I'm like making eggs. Then I've got to wipe the eggs off the engine fire, thing. And I'm like, shit, how do you do this? All right. This, and this. And I can flip it over and be like, okay, we're good.
Yeah. Talk about stressful.
Exactly.
You got to exercise the muscles though. Your brain really is what it is.
Yep. So it's great. I've never failed a type rating, so it must work.
Love it.
Awesome. So the next bit of questions I asked, they're just going to be like kind of, I don't want to say generic, but they're going to be general. Let me just make sure. Yeah. But they're going to be general, kind of like, do you understand your privileges and limitations? Do you understand everything that you need to understand as a private pilot? Not necessarily going to be specific to your aircraft. Make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's get into, sorry, I missed two emergencies that I have to go through, right? How do I recover from a spin?
So it's the, is it called, I can't say the word. There was an acronym that was a recommendation, but I'm not going to say it. But the other one is like PAIR, I think is what it is.
Okay.
Is that what it is? But anyway, so rudder is the most important thing. Like recovering from the stall and rudder, so opposite to the spin. Power out, and then elevators neutral.
So
to recover, yeah.
Power out, ailerons neutral.
Ailerons neutral. Yeah.
Rudder opposite rotation.
Rudder opposite. Right.
Elevator briskly forward.
Right.
Okay. When we say briskly forward, we mean it. Briskly forward.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. It's not I'm just going to pitch forward. Because remember, when you finish from a spin, it's very likely that your airplane's falling like this. Okay. What's the relative wind? It's 90 degrees at this point.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
Get that nose down. Okay. All right. I don't know what the other acronym was. I'm assuming it's a dirty word.
Yeah, it was.
I have
no.
It
started with rudder. It started with rudder. Started with R.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. No. Power idle. Ailerons neutral. Rudder opposite rotation. Elevator briskly forward.
Okay.
I think I know what the other one is. I've never heard that one. I've heard reap. That's
reap.
Yeah.
Right. We can do reap. Yeah.
Yeah. I like power idle, right? Because it helps you get the nose down. Ailerons neutral, right? We're not going to be able to bank out of this. Okay. If I try to bank out of it, the adverse yaw is just going to increase my rate of rotation, and I am very likely just going to take a nap at this point. And then rudder opposite rotation. How do I know which rudder to press?
Yeah, I learned this from you. You'll feel the like resistance on the one that's the correct one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one you want to jam in, basically.
Yep. Now, some students have said, "Oh, I'll just press on the ball." Where's the ball in a spin? Is it into the spin or is it out of the spin?
It's going to be. We're going to be uncoordinated. It's going to be the side that we've stalled on. Yes. Is where it's going to be.
So it's going to be into the spin.
Into it, yeah.
Right. So if I was to try and follow the ball, that's just going to be me stepping on the dead rudder, right? It's like the one time you don't step on the ball, right? Yeah. Does yours have glass or is it six packs?
No glass.
No glass. Yeah. Okay.
I've seen them with it, the diamonds, the DA-20s with it.
Yeah, and the glass is nice. The only problem is glass isn't rated for spins. A lot of times it just turns off. It just goes black. Right. I've done spins in a Cessna 172 with a G1000 in it. It initially goes to declutter mode where it just gets rid of everything other than your attitude indicator. But then when you actually enter the spin, it just goes black. It's like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, man. So, because they're not rated to operate in those ranges, right? Your attitude indicator can also tumble, right? So it's just going to be bouncing all over the place, right? Now, what are you going to do if you inadvertently enter IFR conditions?
Well, where I just came from wasn't IFR, so I'm going to attempt to turn back where I came from. So 180 degree turn. You're not going to be able to see outside, so you're going to rely on your instruments as best you can to get out to do that turn. And then head back the way you came, and hopefully it's still clear that way. Like hopefully you were paying enough attention that there wasn't crazy conditions coming in like all sides of you, behind you, and stuff. Now,
what am I going to do with my turn coordinator? Where am I going to put? Go ahead.
Like a standard rate of turn.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first little notch on the lowest notch is the standard rate of turn.
Awesome. So about how long is it going to take me to turn around?
I've learned this one time. It's like.
So how many minutes is a standard rate turn?
Yeah. Is it 3 minutes?
2 minutes is a standard rate turn. Okay.
So 1 minute.
So it's going to take you 1 minute to turn around. Do you have like a rough estimate on how much time it's going to take you from entering IMC to exiting IMC if it is still VFR behind you?
If I turned right away, it's going to be pretty immediately. I'm going to be back like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's that 3 to 5 minutes that you were thinking of, right? Because you've got your oh shit factor of about 30 seconds. Then if you were doing your cross country properly, you had a tailwind, right? So during your standard rate turn, you still had that wind pushing you farther into the IFR conditions, right? And then you're going to have about another minute to get out, right? So you had your 30-second oh shit factor, your 1 minute turn, and then about another minute or so to get out. That's about 2.5 to 3 minutes, 2.5 to 5 minutes.
Right. And that night, I feel like the risk for this is higher because you really can't see the clouds until you see the lights, like your lights bright up the clouds in front of you. I think that's like, I don't know if this is a common thing, but I just know that we've done some cross country night flights, and all of a sudden there's a cloud right there. It's like, whoa, I had no idea there was a cloud coming up. Yeah, I mean, and it's happened to me before on a VFR cross country with a student, and next thing you know, we're blinded by the strobes. And I'm like, oh shit, it's the clouds. Right? Yeah. Awesome. Right. Now, let's say for some reason you turned around and it's still IFR. It was rain that came in that caused the visibility to go down. What are you going to do now? We'll just continue to stay straight and level. First of all, so I don't get crazy uncoordinated and get confused at where I'm at. So just rely on the instruments. Contact ATC is the next thing, because I don't know if it's still VFR below me. I don't even know what's above me or below me. I don't know anything at this point because I'm a private pilot. So I'd contact ATC and ask for, like a vector out and let them know I'm a private pilot. I'm not IFR rated. I need VFR, like vectoring basically, or to vector to an area that's VFR. All right. Awesome. Again, I just clean it up. Right. So have an actual script, because remember, it's going to be terrifying when this happens. So having that actual script that you say, this is exactly what I am going to say. Right. ATC, student pilot, or, private pilot, not IFR rated in IMC conditions. I need vectors to the nearest VFR airport. My last known fix was. Right. So they at least have an idea on where to look for you. Sure. Okay. Because to them, all they see is a bunch of airplanes out there squawking 1200. They don't know which one's you. Right. Yeah. Then they're going to give you a squawk code, right? You know how to punch those in, right? Yep. Awesome. Yeah. I fly at a Ursa airport, so they have us put that in every time just for best practice. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
So you've got plenty of experience talking on the radios. I know people that they've been private pilots for like 5 years, and they don't go to the local airports with towers because they're still terrified to talk to tower. They did their 3 takeoffs and landings that are required at a towered airport, and that's all.
That would be tough to be a private pilot without that. It's still, sometimes I still don't understand what they're asking me to do, so I have to ask for clarification on a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's just my biggest tip to any student that's struggling on the radio. Just talk to them like they're people. They're just people. I know some controllers, they can be a little bit of a dick from time to time. At my training airport, we had one guy that we all called the professor, because if you did something wrong, he'd give you a lecture on how you did it wrong.
Oh my gosh.
On the radio too. Like, there's 10 of us in the pattern, dude. We ain't got time for this. All right. So now let's get into some airworthiness requirements. What documents need to be in an airplane for it to still be airworthy?
Yeah, so I would do for it to be airworthy.
Yeah, what documents need to be in an airplane?
Yeah, so we need our airworthiness certificate. So I would use like the Aero checklist.
Okay.
Airworthiness, the registration, aircraft registration. There's an extra R in there for radio if you're doing international. The operating handbook, and then the weight and balance.
Okay. Now, when you say weight and balance, is that like the weight and balance that your instructor makes you do before every flight?
No, it's like the certified weight, the empty weight of the aircraft, and like the moment calculation.
Okay. Awesome. Now, I've got a digital version of your POH, and you've got one printed out as well. Does that count?
No, because this one doesn't have the serial number for the airplane on it. So this one wouldn't count. This is just the general one. Yeah.
Now, the acronym I like to use is Sparrow as opposed to Aero. All right, because Sparrow includes supplements. So if there's any equipment that's been installed in this airplane that isn't from the factory, the STC, the supplemental type certificate, requires that the supplement be included in the aircraft, right? Some DPEs are like, okay, that becomes part of the POH, so saying operator's handbook covers everything. Other DPEs are like, well, what about the supplements? Okay. So that's why I like the Sparrow acronym. P is placards.
Placards.
That stupid no smoking sign. It's a required placard. It's a required document. It's a sticker, right?
Yeah.
Airplane's not airworthy without that stupid no smoking sticker. Airplane's not airworthy without the flap indication sticker. Airplane's not airworthy without the sticker that's out on the strut telling you how much oil goes in the strut.
This one has a lot of stickers too. Like if you look at the operating handbook, there's like multiple pages of where all the stickers are. And it's like, hopefully the glue stays on and I can still be airworthy.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, to be honest, there's nothing special about them. Like, I'm about to buy a Cricut so I can cut out stickers because there's a few of mine that should probably be replaced. Like the ones on the strut.
Yeah.
Now, since your airplane's composite, I don't know about that because I don't know what the glue is going to do to the composite material on your aircraft. Mine's aluminum. So, I mean, I can, right?
You stick it on there. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. But a composite airplane, those things are terrifying to me. You drop a wrench on it, the airplane could look fine, but there's a fracture that runs through the entire wing. Yeah. I don't like composite airplanes. They're slick, they're fast, and they don't need a lot. Like, they don't burn as much gas to go as fast as they do. But because your airplane's got what does it cruise at? Like 98?
Usually we stick for like 90 to 100, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 90 to 100, and you're burning what, 7 gallons an hour doing it?
It's actually pretty efficient. It's like 5.5.
Yeah, a Cessna with doing the exact same speed is going to be burning like 8 to 9.
Yeah, a lot more.
All right. Okay. So there's benefits to composite, but I don't know. It just scares me. One mechanic that doesn't want to say something about dropping a wrench, and all of a sudden, you're looking out the left side wondering where your wing went. Now, have you ever seen the maintenance logbook of this aircraft?
No.
Have you ever
only squawk the like stuff that's coming up. But no, never seen it.
Have you ever seen a maintenance logbook?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'll grab mine.
Okay.
It's on the floor because I show it so often. So this is the maintenance logbook for my airplane. All right. This is only since it moved back to the States in the late 90s. When it lived in Canada and when it was first manufactured, I also have 2 more of these in a little box back there. Okay. I tab mine out just like you probably tab out your FAR aim. And this is where all of my required inspections and maintenance are. Okay. So like this pink one is, I think that's my prop airworthiness directive. Yep. That's my prop AD that needs to be done regularly. Then I've got the engine portion of my annual, the prop portion of my annual. Then I've got my airframe annual and my ELT check. It's all tabbed out. But also in the back, this is my airworthiness directive compliance sheets. Almost all of those were airworthiness directive compliance.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's an airplane from 1984 that was designed by it was a coke-filled dream that designed this airplane. So, there's some stuff that needed to get done after the fact. But what am I looking for? I know I just kind of gave you the answers, but what am I looking for in a maintenance logbook to verify that it's airworthy?
Yeah. So first thing would be its annual inspection, and in the case this is a airplane for rent, so it's going to be every 100 hours as well. You're going to be looking for those airworthiness directives, and in this plane, I actually looked up before this if there was any, and I couldn't find any. It had one for another model, a DA-A, which is like the Katana. There was a couple in there, but for this, the one that I'm flying, I didn't find any ADs. I gotta check before my check ride just to double check that. You're gonna be looking for your inspection on the ELT. That one's every 12 months, and then battery. Last time it was replaced, and how often it's been tested. I think that might get hard to calculate, but there's probably one more big category. The altimeter check every 24 months. I think I got most of it.
Okay. Yep. So annual, right? Every 12 calendar months. It's not just a singular annual. I know when I first bought my airplane, I was like, oh yeah, let me look for the one annual saying the entire airplane is good. No, the engine has an annual, the prop has an annual, and the airframe has an annual, all separate from each other. They all technically have their own section in your maintenance logbook. Okay. At least that's how my logbook's set up.
Yeah.
100 hour. You said because the aircraft is for rent, it needs 100 hour. Technically not true. All right. It's because it's for rent and an instructor is being supplied with the aircraft as well. I know every instructor teaches 100 hours required for commercial use. But if we actually read 91409, all right, 91409 only requires 100 hour inspection for the carriage of passengers for compensation or hire, or if I am providing an aircraft and an instructor together for rent. Okay.
Yeah. So if it's like a flight club or something like that, and you're just renting, there's just people renting it by themselves and they're private or instrument rated, then that wouldn't need 100 hour in that example.
Nope.
It would just annual. Okay, cool.
And even the same, like let's say you're part of a flying club and as a student pilot and you're renting an airplane and then you bring your own instructor, no 100 hours required. All right.
Yeah.
I know it's weird. I always was taught 100 hour if for compensation or hire. So I'm thinking everything, right? But no, right? If I'm going to be doing like aerial photography, that's commercial operations. That's for compensation and hire. Doesn't require an annual, or doesn't require 100 hour. It does require an annual. Doesn't require 100 hour. Now, when I look at that maintenance log, who am I looking to verify has done the annual? What kind of mechanic?
There's 2 types of mechanics. I don't remember the acronyms for them.
Okay, so there's more than 2, but what you're mostly familiar with is an A and P. Technically, those are 2 different certificates. All right, airframe and power plant. You can get them separately, saying, I can work on engines, but I can't work on your airplane. Or I can work on your airplane, but I can't touch your engine.
Okay. So could they do the annual for the engine, the ANP?
They need an IA as well, an inspection authority.
IA. Okay.
Okay. You don't need an IA to do a 100-hour. You just need an IA to do an annual. Now, as a private pilot, what can you do?
There's some maintenance that I can do, really basic maintenance, like fluid changes, tire. I believe I can do a tire change, but our school has a mechanic do it. Yeah, like real simple tasks.
Okay.
Nothing that requires me to take like mechanical parts apart and then put them back together.
Okay. Do you know where to find what you actually can do?
Would that be in 91? I think that would be in part 91.
It's actually going to be in 43. And
43?
your book, I think, doesn't have 43. You got to look it up separately.
Yeah.
Let me find it.
Oh, I got it in here. I'll tab this one out. Maintenance, rebuilding, and alteration.
Yeah, and there's an
my old
appendix
one
in
didn't.
it.
The 2023 version that I had through like the Glime kit or whatever didn't have it, but this new one does that I got.
All right.
Okay, part 43. All right.
Preventative maintenance. I'm trying to find the exact one. Preventative maintenance.
43.
Yeah, so part
There's an
43, maintenance, preventative. I'm trying to find exactly which one. Because I think it's appendix. Appendix
like
A.
A. Yeah, that's a major. That's all the major stuff.
Well, it also includes preventative, and I think it's Appendix A, Part C.
Okay.
Oh, no, not Part C. Where did it go?
Your alterations.
Major altimeter transponder. Oh, come on. Where did it go?
Here we go. I found it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's part, like you said, Part C, Appendix A to Part 43. So it's like removal, installation, and repair of landing gear tires, shock absorbers, cords on landing gear, servicing the landing gear shock struts. Oh, I can do that by adding oil, air, or both. That's cool.
Yeah, there's actually a lot that you can do, like refinishing decorative coating on fuselage.
Oh, you got it up. Cool.
Yeah, I've got it right up here. Making simple repairs to fairings, non-structural cover plates, cowlings, small patches, and reinforcements, not changing the contours to interfere with the proper airflow, replacing windows, replacing seats, replacing safety belts, troubleshooting and repairing broken circuits in landing light wiring circuits. Like, there's actually a lot in this that you can do, replacing prefabricated fuel lines.
Wow.
Yeah. You would think like there ain't no way in hell. Ain't no way in hell. But technically, yeah, fair game.
You better tighten the connectors to the correct tightness, whatever the torque is that the manufacturer says.
Exactly.
That'd be the other thing is like, how do you even find the recommend, like in the cars, they have those like books out there that's basically someone broke down the car and put it back together. It's like a private person.
Yeah.
Is there like a source for these manufacturers? Do they have like official repair guides and things like that?
So there's not an official there is an official repair guide. Okay. But it's not a third party. Okay. Where's mine?
Yeah, usually the manufacturers of vehicles, like to get the official one, it's like expensive. I remember looking at it before for like an old Jeep that I had, but you can go to like an AutoZone or whatever, any store, and you can get one for like $20 for your car. Third parties.
Well, those are different than what the manufacturer puts out. The manufacturer puts out is a lot more in depth than Chilton or Haynes. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is Haynes, a lot more.
That's what they are. You've done it. Have you worked on cars? Okay.
I used to build race cars before I was a pilot. So
nice.
Awesome. But there is a maintenance manual for your airplane, and it is going to be drastically different based on the manufacturer. My maintenance log is bigger than my maintenance manual. Okay.
It's good.
To quote my maintenance manual, it says, if you've got a leak on your hydraulic system, put vice grips on the landing gear to prevent them from collapsing when you depressurize the system. Then look for the leak and repair it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's real fucking helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like some like backyard mechanic situation. Just vice grip and cut off the leak.
Yeah, I'm sitting here like, because I was losing hydraulic fluid, and I was like, oh, let me go to the maintenance manual. Maybe it gives me like a flow sheet or something that I could like break down and be like, okay, this is how I'm going to isolate each system and how I'm going to test for leaks. And no, vice grip the landing gear, bleed the system, check for leaks, repair the leak. If another leak occurs, repeat steps 1 through 5. And I'm like, and this is a certified fucking airplane.
Damn.
All right.
I can't wait till I get to that stage. It's going to be fun figuring this stuff out.
Just don't buy a Lake. It's going to be hard for you too, since there's only like 400 of them left flying, but
noted. I won't look the direction.
Yeah. I mean, they're a blast. I love them. They handle like a jet ski on the water. But yeah. All right. So there is actually a lot more that you can do that falls under preventative maintenance than most people would even be comfortable doing. Right. So let's get into a little bit more airworthiness, right? You walk up to the airplane and the attitude indicator, it just won't come up to level, right? Vacuum gauge is good, but the attitude indicator is just wobbling all around. Is this airplane airworthy?
According to like 91205, that's not one of the required instruments. I'd have to look at the kinds of operation list to see. I don't remember if attitudes required one, but I would reference the KOEL and the POH just to verify it's not in there.
Okay,
but it's not apart from 205. It's not. So then we're relying on 213, which is where the manufacturer's recommendations come in.
All right, manufacturer's requirements, not recommendations.
Requirements. Yeah.
Is there any other place that you would check? Right. So we talked about attitude indicator. But just in general, let's say you walked up and it was missing an elevator. How would you know that it needs its elevator?
Well, it needs an elevator to be like airworthy. It's like like you can't. It's one of the primary flight controls, so you wouldn't be able to fly it safely. So it's. Where would you reference that?
And that's kind of the question is like, where is that actually written down that I need my damn elevator?
Yeah, I don't.
It's in the TCDS.
Oh, there is a place.
Yeah, it's the type certificate data sheet.
Okay.
Right. The type certificate is how it was designed when it came from the factory.
And will you find that in the POH? That's separate. Okay.
Yeah, it is separate.
So it's kind of like, is it like the spec sheet or build sheet?
Yeah, it's kind of like the spec sheet.
Okay.
Right. You would also check
see this stuff on this plane. Yeah, I want to see this stuff, like the maintenance log and the TCDS.
Ask your instructor for them. You could probably Google it by the tail number, like TCDS for Diamond 2 DA-20.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Diamond DA-20 TCDS. Yeah, here's the EASA one. I found it. See, I think this is for the diesel. This is actually for the DA-50. All right. So it's not that detailed, but it's there. Makes sense?
Yeah. So if you see on there elevator installed and then you go out to your plane and you don't see the elevator, you're like, well, according to my TCDS, I need that. So it's not airworthy. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
The only other place you'd want to check, right, is your STCs, supplemental type certificates. Okay. Your airplane probably doesn't have any. All
Okay.
right. Do you know what an STC is?
Supplemental type
Type
said?
certificate. Yes.
certificate. This would be like extra equipment installed after the fact, and then like the supplement that goes along with them.
Yep. So, for example, if I put a G5 in my airplane, right? A G5 is that fancy, like it's like a mini G1000, right? If I put a G5 in my airplane, the G5 is not a required piece of equipment based on my supplemental type certificate. It's just an attitude indicator and standby airspeeds and whatnot, right? As long as I still have all my other avionics that were installed in the airplane originally, it's really just an attitude indicator with more information on it. So it's still not required by 91205, and it's also not required by the STC. What's required though is the circuit breaker that was needed to be installed to power that G5. If that circuit breaker isn't functioning properly, the airplane's not airworthy. If the G5 is dead, doesn't matter. But if I pull that circuit breaker and that G5 doesn't power down, the airplane's not airworthy because the required piece of equipment isn't operating.
Okay.
All right. One other place is an MEL. Your aircraft doesn't have an MEL, but the MEL would trump everything else we just talked about.
Okay.
All right.
Mind if I ask you a question on the kinds of operation?
Yeah, the KOEL.
Yeah, there's a double negative in here, and I've had trouble interpreting it. You can find the page that it's on. It gets under general. Sorry, I have to find the page.
You're fine. I'm searching for it right now.
213.
Oh.
Chapter 213, page 12. Okay.
Like PDF or like total page 12 or
on the printout, it's chapter 213. So I don't know what.
Oh, okay. I can get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 2, page 12. All right.
It's actually not a double negative, but it's just weird. I'll show you when you get there. I don't know if this is a common way that manufacturers do this, but I know Diamond had this.
I think what's also happening is I don't think this manual is written in English originally. So
that's probably where this interpretation comes from. Yeah. They
all right.
Localized it to English and then screwed up the translation, maybe.
Yep. So which one's the problem?
Yeah. So if you look at like the attitude gyro, so that's the one you're actually asking about earlier. Now that we're here, not mandatory for day VFR only. The way that I interpret that is it means it is mandatory for VFR, night VFR. Is that how you were interpreting that sentence?
That's how I would.
But then look at the next one down. Mandatory for night VFR only. Like they could have wrote the one above that the same, but they chose the negative there.
That is kind of odd. Not mandatory for day VFR only.
Yeah, to me that makes me think it's just night.
Yeah,
but then
that's
the one below it said night only. So it's like, why did they write them double negative with the night thing?
I think it's probably because the outside air temperature is never required. Is an attitude indicator required for night? I don't think it is. That is weird. I don't know why it's written like that, but that's the way I interpret it. Hey, when I go to put this up, you in the comments, let us know.
I love it. Yeah, the YouTube comments you get on your videos is great. Okay, so to answer your question earlier, attitude is required for night VFR according to the kinds of operation, but it's way they write it is just super.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. I got it highlighted right here. Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, not mandatory for day VFR and then mandatory for night VFR, which those like logically are equivalent sentences. I just don't know why they would write. To me, they're logically equivalent, but yeah, it'd be good to know what people think.
Yeah, that is because like, I don't know, because it doesn't say shit about requiring it for night. And I don't think it's required by. I feel stupid not knowing if it's required for VFR night. I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that is weird. Now I'm gonna have to look up 91205.
Yeah, attitude wasn't in there.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. VFR during the day. Visual day, visual night. Lights. Yeah, no, it's not required by 91205 at all. But like, yeah, the way that that's written is it like there's the implication that it's required for night operations.
I wonder if this is a weird situation where it's like for IFR, they're trying to. It is required for IFR or something. I haven't looked at the.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I defer to the safer operation, obviously, which is the requirement of using it at night, or is saying, hey, I need my attitude indicator. Right? I don't think I'd want to fly at night without one. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I wouldn't want to fly at night without an attitude indicator. That's half the reason why I don't fly my airplane at night. The attitude indicator falls over periodically. And like, I don't. After 3 engine failures, I don't like flying at night single engine anymore.
Yeah.
All right. So
you've been in the thick of it.
Yeah. Let's get into privileges and limitations. So what are you allowed to do now that you're a private pilot that you weren't allowed to do before?
Yeah, a couple new things. So you can fly passengers now. You can fly in Bravo airspace without the student Bravo endorsement and all that. So you just ask for clearance and may or not get it. You can also fly for like charity. And then if you're like gonna go and sell aircraft, you have to have a minimum hours before you can do that. But that's also another privilege you get. But you need a certain amount of hours. I think it's like 100 or 200 hours.
200 hours of PIC specific.
PIC. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. Now,
yeah, that's, I think that's all I can think of.
Yeah, that's most of them. It's pretty straightforward, right? You can fly around, you can fly with passengers, you can enter Bravo airspace if you get the clearance to do so. Tow gliders with the appropriate training. You can't be paid to tow gliders. You can be reimbursed your cost to tow gliders. Okay. But just to make sure that you've got a solid understanding, because everyone remembers these things and they memorize them. But let's give you a fun little scenario, right? Let's say, you passed your private pilot's certificate, and then your mom gets all excited and she wants to come visit you. She's like, "Oh my God, my baby's a pilot now! Oh heavens to Betsy!"
That's exactly what she's gonna say.
Right. So she buys a ticket, goes to your closest Bravo airport or Charlie airport, whatever. Gets a rental car from Hertz. It's a terrible experience because for some reason Hertz, their entire premise is renting cars, but it goes wrong every time. And then she drives out to you. You take her for a flight. Y'all like go get lunch or something. She's like, "Oh my God, this is life changing. My baby's a pilot. Oh, I knew he'd be something someday."
This is so funny because my mom's not from Carolina. She's California. So,
she's not going to have this like debutante voice.
No, but she's going to laugh.
Either way. So she's like, "I'm just going to return my rental car out here and you can fly me back to the Bravo airport because she knows about airspace. And I'll give you like $50 for gas. Can you do this?" As funny as it sounds, right?
Well, if we go for a common purpose, so we could change the plans and go and get lunch at the airport or near the airport. So we're going to go grab lunch, and also guess what? Your flight's taking off from that same airport where we're getting the lunch at. Yeah. So yeah, common purpose is needed, and then the cost has to be like an equal split in this case.
Okay. Now,
yeah. Or less, or nothing. I wouldn't charge my mom for that. I would fly her.
Like I'd fly my mom anyway. Oh God. All right. But you got it, right? You need that common purpose. It needs to be pro rata share at a bare minimum, right? Now let's say me and you go fly. We're both pilots. We're both qualified to fly this aircraft. Where's the split got to be? Can you pay more?
Are we just?
I'm not
Yeah, I
your
can pay
instructor
more.
right
If
now.
I'm
We're
the
just
PIC. Yeah, I can pay more.
so
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
since we're both pilots, we both have to pay our pro rata share.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, right. Split fuel, right? Like we need to like for time building when you end up at that commercial time frame,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
What I would just stay away from, I've seen it a lot. People are like, "Hey, I've got an airplane, who wants to come build time with me and split the fuel cost?" That's kind of holding it out to the public. I don't know how much I really agree with that because like that's kind of, I don't know, feels dirty to me, right?
Yeah.
Now it's you and your buddy. Right? You actually have a reason to be flying around with this person. You're at the same flight school, what have you. But just kind of offering a seat in your airplane to split the cost so that you both can build time. To be honest, I don't want to go fly around with strangers that much.
No.
Right. Let's get into some airspace, right? There are 3 airspaces that you will never get cleared into as a private pilot. What are they?
First is Alpha. You need an instrument and a flight plan for Alpha. IFR. Oh no, you're asking airspaces, not conditions. I think there's the one that's around like the DC area, and you need to take a special license for it, like in I forget what it's called. It's like a restricted airspace.
I think I know which one you're talking about. And yeah, it requires special training. Yeah. All right.
But I don't think that's the one you're asking about.
No.
Is it? No. Okay. It's the ones that are like actual restricted, like military. There's like a blue line around those on the sectionals. That's another one you won't be able to go in.
Okay.
I can't think of a third one.
So restricted, I can receive a clearance though, right? I can ask. And there is the possibility that I could get cleared into it.
Right.
Right. So to be honest, I really think of restricted as kind of like weirdly shaped Bravo. Like I can still ask. They'll probably tell me the pound sand. But I can ask, right?
Okay.
And it's possible that I'll get a clearance. I'm never going to get cleared into a TFR or a prohibited airspace.
Prohibited or TFR. Okay.
Right. So Alpha, prohibited, TFR.
Okay.
Right. I went to go get ice cream one day and freaking I didn't realize there was a TFR all around this airport that I normally fly into to go get ice cream at this. Like, there's actually this custard place called Adrian's Custard, and that's my name, Adrian. So I go to my own custard place, whatever. But there was a TFR covering it because Biden came to Milwaukee. I was so sad.
Oh,
I wanted to go get ice cream. And I'm like, damn you, Biden.
You couldn't fly. Yeah. They probably had that. So what if you're like, I guess they had a couple of the presidents come to my airport recently. They put the TFR out there. It lasted a certain amount of time. Commercial flights, will they have to ask for permission, or like will they have an issue too for the airliners?
To be honest, I've never had to do it, so I've never had to ask.
Interesting. Okay. Because I had a flight booked and I just canceled it because I was like, I don't want to go to the airport with all the chaos and the snipers on the roofs and all that. So I canceled my flight, but I probably wouldn't have been able to fly as a student.
No, definitely not.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah, believe it or not, like I've flew for the airlines for a number of years and I never had to deal with it.
Okay.
So I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah. I don't think a president's coming to my airport anytime soon. It was just like a rare instance, 2 in a row.
God. It's like if I had 2 nickels for every time it happened, or if I had a nickel for every time it happened, I'd have 2 nickels.
Yeah. Weird. Back-to-back months.
All right. So let's get into some airspace, right? So Delta Airspace. What's my VFR requirement for Delta Airspace?
You're talking like the weather?
Mm-hmm.
Weather. Okay. So you need... I forgot the acronym for it. It's like 152 is for the clouds. 353 152. I'm blanking on these weather.
So
right now,
3 statute miles of visibility.
3 is 3. Right? Okay.
500 below, 1,000 above, 2,000 horizontal from clouds.
Okay.
Okay. definitely get those. They're probably on your knee board, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
All right. So
yeah, 3 statute miles, 2,000 horizontal. Okay, 500 below, 1,000 above. All right.
Now, let's say that we'll go back to the scenario with your mom, right? You're not going to drop her off at the airport, but you guys fly and you go get lunch and you land at this Delta airport. And then, some rain came in. Ceiling's like 2,000 feet and 2-mile visibility at the airport, but like 2 miles away, it looks like clear in a million. Like you can see blue over there. Is there any way that you could leave? Or do you have to wait for the rain to clear and the visibility and whatnot to go up?
Yeah, and the plane I'm in, it has a wood prop, so you're not allowed to fly in the rain or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer. But when I don't get a diamond for my future plane, because I don't think this is the right one for me.
Yeah, that's not practical at all.
Yeah, I think you can get a special VFR.
Mm-hmm.
You can request that.
Awesome. Can you do it at night?
If you could, I wouldn't want to. I don't think so.
No, you need an IFR rating.
That's IFR. Okay. Yeah.
But at that point, just get a IFR flight plan. That is hilarious. I always make the joke about like flying through the rain and saying like, is our airplane made out of sugar? Is it going to melt? Your airplane, actually, it's not sugar, but it's...
I'm pretty sure it's like some kind of MDF material or like some kind of particle board that they just super pack in there with super high glues and stuff. And then moisture gets in and it expands and I think it could like blow up when it's moving that fast.
There was a diamond, a DA-62. No, it probably wasn't a 62. The smaller twin, like the Seminole equivalent, that they gear upped it in Arizona, but they didn't stop. They didn't just completely land. They realized that the gear weren't down and they buzzed the props a little bit and then went around.
No.
And they flew home like that. It was like an hour-long flight. Diamond took the airplane back because they're like, our engineers need to see that.
Yeah.
Because they buzzed like half the prop off.
Oh,
like
that's so crazy. They wouldn't have felt the vibration. Like,
oh yeah, it was shaking like a dog shit in razor blades. But they're like, I'm not dying. Like, fucking send it. I'm like, what? So yeah, their props are pretty fragile. Any prop would, go to bits and curl up and, be nasty after it contacts the ground at 2,700 RPM. But yeah, they went around. They even scraped I don't know if your airplane's got it, but the little foothold for you to like walk up into the airplane. Yeah, they even scraped that along the ground. They were that low to the ground and then went around. Shit was nuts. So we're going to go into some aerodynamics, some aeromedical, then get into some navigation and weather and call it. All right.
Sounds good.
So aerodynamics, what are flaps for?
Flaps are the ability to basically descend without increasing your airspeed. So increases your drag and allows you to descend at like a really like a good rate without just speeding up. And these diamonds are super hard to slow down, so you need them. Like I've landed yesterday with one flap because of the unstable air with my instructor, and we were floating forever down the runway trying to burn off, and then finally we landed. But with full flaps, it's a good experience.
Okay.
In this one.
Have you ever tried to do a no flap landing?
Yeah, on accident on one of my solos. I was looking at my airspeed, looking at, the runway, realizing I wasn't slowing down. I was like, what's happening? And then I realized on my base, I flipped it up instead of down. So then I did a go around and came back. Yeah, it's like not going to slow down. It's just going to stay at like 80 forever. And you're going to use up like half the runway.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Go with your instructor and try it. Right. You're not going to be tested on it. Given that it's electric, like the last thing you want to do is have never tried this and then need to do it. Okay.
That's a good call. Yeah. Just know you're going to have to take up like 5 times or 6 times the landing distance, probably. Just floating.
It's going to suck. You've got a pretty low stall speed when your flaps are up. I think we covered it as like 48 or something like that.
Yeah, low 40s. I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I mean,
something.
I wouldn't necessarily slow all the way down to that because then you risk smacking the tail on the ground. But try it, right? I've had to do a zero flap landing in a CRJ 200, and yeah, I ate up like 3,000 feet before the wheels even touched down. It's terrifying. And then I just pushed it onto the ground because I'm like, nah, we're not doing this.
I'd probably do the same, especially if you're worried about the runway, running out of space.
Oh, I just made sure we were below max tire speed and just put it on the ground. Because that was one of the big like sticking points on that was being above max tire speed. But again, go try it just so that you've got the experience. Okay. Because to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing in your POH preventing it. Right. I technically can't practice it in my airplane because there's things specifically in my POH that says, do not fucking try this. You will die. It puts it in nicer language, but like says
is it that the stall speed is too high and that you'll stall before you can slow down for like that?
To be honest, I'm not sure. They don't go into detail, but if the POH specifically tells me not to do something, I don't do it.
Yeah, they've had an accident probably when they were experimenting with it.
So can you talk me through like aerodynamically not even aerodynamically. Can you talk me through a stall? Like what is a stall?
Yeah. So it's when your wings exceed the critical angle of attack and then the air becomes like turbulent. Basically it's not smooth anymore. It can't, you lose all your lift and then the air over the wings gets super turbulent. It's easy to recover from though.
In this airplane, yeah. I'm going to open up Microsoft Paint real quick just so that I can, because you're not losing all of your lift. You are no longer generating enough lift to keep the aircraft aloft. Okay. So here we go. Microsoft Paint. All right. Here is your CL profile, right? We've seen this graph. It looks something like this, where down here is like, was it AOA, I believe? Sorry, I went to the Helen Keller School of Art. And then over here is like CL or coefficient of lift, right? So as we increase our angle of attack, our coefficient of lift is going up kind of linearly with our angle of attack until we reach our critical angle of attack, and then we get a drastic drop off, right? There's still some lift being generated over here, as you can tell. We still have something. It's just not enough to keep the aircraft aloft. Let's say that like this is our cutoff, right? Or like this is minimum aircraft aloft CL, coefficient of lift. So what's happening is we get up, we exceed our critical angle of attack, and then we drop down below our minimum CL for aircraft aloft. There's still all this lift down here that's being generated. Right?
It's just not enough to keep the plane up in the air anymore. Or to keep it, it'll start falling, but it's still not going to fall like a rock. It's just going to start coming down because of that extra lift that you still have.
Exactly.
Not enough, though.
And the reason I bring it up is because you do have a kind of a narrow, it's not really swept, but it's a really narrow wing. All right. I don't like that. I don't like that line. All right. Because this is the lift profile of a swept wing aircraft. All right. There's nothing stopping a general aviation airplane from having a swept wing. Okay. But as you can tell, you don't get this sharp drop like you do here. Like here might be CL max in this airplane, or it might be here, or it might be here. But as you can tell, there's this huge flat area where like, did I stall? I don't fucking know. Okay.
Power on stalls are really hard to simulate in this one. Like it just doesn't want to do it. You have to hold it forever. And then you have to be really careful with the rudders because it's like starts to go in one direction. It's not my favorite maneuver.
No, it's most people don't really enjoy power on stalls. But as you can see,
that's cool. That I didn't realize so is that like it's probably good for training aircraft if it has that steep curve like that. It's harder to stall
it's easier to recognize the stall.
Yeah.
I know we all talk about like the reason we practice stalls is recognition and recovery. And so many students like, how the fuck wouldn't you recognize that? right? Stall horn screaming to me. The airplane dropped drastically. How would nobody recognize that, right? But some other airplanes out there, they don't stall as violently. So just keep that in mind, right? So what is uncoordination when it comes to flying an aircraft?
Uncoordinated flight is like basically the entire plane is like tilted, but you're still flying in a certain direction. And you can recognize it by looking at the ball if you're uncoordinated.
Okay. What I like to do, remember, you're a VFR pilot. Feel it. Right. Mm-hmm. What I do with all of my students, I have them close their eyes and I have them tell me which rudder they think I need. And I'm over here dancing on the rudders. Right. So that they can feel what coordination actually feels like. Right. This is where a lot of people get kind of messed up in power on stalls, is because the ball indicator doesn't work at fucking 40 degrees, 30 degrees nose up. Doesn't work like that. It's not what it's intended for. So that's why because let's be honest, it's an old airplane, it's probably crooked. So when you're looking at the ball going, oh, I'm coordinated, but you're getting pushed into the side of the airplane, you're not coordinated.
Okay.
Right? Because your turn coordinator was installed crooked, or like one of the screws is bent, or, anything could have happened over the last 20 years of this airplane. I don't know. What year is yours?
This is a 2000, 2001, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So the last 20 years, the airplane's been around, right?
Yeah.
So uncoordination, the tail isn't tracking behind the nose in the direction of travel. It's a real easy way to break it down.
That's a simple definition. Okay.
What is my concern if I'm flying around in an uncoordinated fashion, or if I stall in an uncoordinated fashion?
It increases it's not efficient, first of all. So you're just not going straight, basically. Second is, if you do stall, then you risk a spin.
Okay. What are the 4 phases of a spin?
There's the entry to the spin, incipient, that develops. So it's a fully mature phase, and then the recovery to it.
Okay. We talked about what the entry is, right? It's that uncoordinated stall.
Yeah.
You know about how many rotations that incipient phase is?
Is it just the 1/2 of the spin, when you start to go down? And
that is the entry.
Yeah, that's the entry. Okay.
Incipient is the first 1 to 3 rotations when everything is stabilizing. Okay. In the incipient phase of a spin, your airspeed is going to be increasing to slightly above or slightly below your stall speed, depending on which direction you're spinning, right? So if I'm spinning to the right with my pitot tube over on the left, it's going to be slightly above stall speed. If I'm spinning to the left, pitot tube on the left, it's going to be slightly below stall speed.
Okay.
Right? So when my airspeed stabilizes, my rate of rotation and my vertical descent, my vertical speed stabilizes, that's the start of your fully developed phase.
Okay.
Right? And now we're, hopefully recovery, which we already talked about. Right?
Yeah.
Now, your airplane has those fun little things out on the wings that go up, right out down the tip. Right?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm not sure.
Okay. They're called winglets, right? Your airplane might call them sharklets. The French do weird things. But they're winglets, right? When we generate lift, is there high pressure or low pressure on top of the wing?
Low pressure.
Low pressure. So there's high pressure underneath the wing, relatively.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens at the tip of the wing? They spill over onto each other.
Okay.
Right? That's where most of my induced drag comes from, is the fact that the high pressure is spilling over and smacking the top of the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's also where wingtip vortices come from, which cause wake turbulence, right?
Right.
You having those little winglets drastically reduces the induced drag that gets generated by pushing that high pressure farther away from the wing and kind of trapping the low pressure on top of it.
Okay. That's nice.
Okay. Have you ever seen an Airbus like a 320 with the ones that go up and down? They're kind of like this.
Yeah.
Right? It's trapping the high pressure underneath. It's trapping the low pressure on top so that you end up with a drastically reduced drag. And then they put that dang internet antenna on the top and completely destroyed all the drag benefits of the wingtips.
People have to have their internet while they're flying.
Right?
I like it because it's a nice break from, all the noise.
Exactly. I grab my Switch and play Stardew Valley with no internet.
Nice.
Right. So let's go over some turning tendencies. What are the turning tendencies? Like when we're taking off, right? You need to apply some right rudder. What's causing that?
Yeah, there's the P factor, there's torque, gyroscopic precession, and then I don't remember the last one.
Spiraling slipstream.
Oh yeah, that's the air hitting the rudder, causing it to turn the tendency. Okay.
Yep. Now most people get like the one people struggle with the most is gyroscopic precession. So can you talk to me about gyroscopic precession?
Yeah, it's when there's like a object spinning or rotating and you apply torque to that object. You feel that torque like 90 degrees past where you apply the force.
Which direction?
To the right.
In the direction of rotation.
Right.
Right. To the right makes sense because your propeller spins to the right. But think about like a Waco. I think a Waco, the propeller spins to the left.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it could have opposite. That's neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, that's actually pretty solid, right? What's P factor?
P factor. That's when the actual like blade of the when it spins like at a certain part, there's a difference in the angle that it's at compared to the top. So you end up getting a little bit more force on one side of like the prop. That's at least like the basics of my understanding of it.
All right. So it only happens when you're pitching, right? So when I'm going straight, there is no P factor. Okay.
Right. Because they're both equal, like the blades hitting the equivalency. And yeah, there's no difference in the forces.
Yep. So when I start to pitch up, as we can see, my descending blade has a bigger angle of attack to the relative wind than my ascending blade.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's
so
why
you get a little bit more force that direction.
Yeah. It pushes the airplane to the left. Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
And torque, torque is a big one on the ground when you're taking off. You can feel it you need a little bit of right rudder. Yeah.
Yep. Torque is it's Newton's third law, right? For every action, there's an equal yet opposite reaction. Propeller spinning to the right, airplane wants to torque to the left.
Yeah.
Some people say it's because when it's torquing to the left, it's like putting pressure on that left wheel. I don't know. I'm sure.
Yeah, could be.
Right. Awesome. So let's get into some Aeromedical. Then we're going to open up SkyVector and aviationweather.gov. What checklist are you going to go through to verify that you are currently fit to operate an aircraft?
That'd be the I'm safe checklist.
All right.
So yeah, a couple things. So illness. Do I have anything like plugged up? I've had sinus issues before, and it just really was distracting. So look for any illnesses. Medication. So if you're you can't take anything that's like says on the back of it, don't operate heavy machinery while on this. So like your NyQuils and stuff like that. But there's also lists that you can check. Was it the AOPA or whatever that site is? They have a good list.
AMAS. Yep.
Okay.
AMAS. That's the one I go to. There is a disclaimer on their site. Just says like, hey, this isn't a government website. Like mistakes can exist.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good one. I'll check it out. Next is, so I am safe stress is the next one. So there's like, chronic stress and there's acute stress. So it's the acute one that you're looking for. Stressful events in your life. Alcohol. So it's 0.04%, or 8 hours bottled throttle. And then also like you can't have the effects of alcohol, like a hangover or just something from the previous day. Fatigue. So my personal minimum is I like to get like at least 6 hours, 6.5, somewhere around there. And then emotion is the last one.
Yep.
So is there any big event in my life that is causing me like just me to operate differently? That's a big one. That's a self-check, I'd say.
Awesome. The medication one, I know you brought up like hey, if it says like do not operate heavy machinery on the back of it, is Dayquil okay?
I'd have to check.
Yeah.
The way you're asking, probably not.
Yeah. I was like, well, since you asked, no.
Yeah.
No, there's a blood thinner in it.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, right? So blood thinner don't carry oxygen as well, right? Well, there's two. Doesn't carry oxygen as well. No, I forget the other one. Either way, Dayquil is not approved. Midol, that one kind of blew my mind. That Midol, you need like 72 hours from your last Midol dosage. It's like, what? Midol, isn't it just Tylenol? No, there's apparently antihistamines in it. Like there's Benadryl in it.
Huh.
This is like Midol. I don't fucking Midol. Excedrin is another one that you can't take. And it's just a headache medicine. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just it's caffeine and Tylenol, right? Nope. There's other things in it. Awesome. Now, we went over alcohol. That was perfect. Let's talk about hypoxia. What are the 4 different kinds of hypoxia?
Yeah, so there's hypoxia. There's histotoxic, I think is what it's called. I'm struggling on these. I don't remember the last two.
Okay.
Hypemic. That's the one. It just came to me. The last one is like, I always forget the word, but it's like from experiencing too much G forces, or like your leg goes to sleep or something like that. Somehow there's blood. The blood supply is getting cut off from like some force or physical thing. I don't remember the last one.
Okay. Hypoxic, hypemic, stagnant, histotoxic. Hypoxic, lack of O2 absorbed into the body due to lack of pressure. Right?
Okay.
Your lungs function on the premise of the atmosphere shoving oxygen in your throat. If you don't have the force of the air, force of the atmosphere shoving it down your throat, your lungs don't work very well, right? So you end up with less transfer of air across your that lung word into your red blood cells, right? Hypemic, inability of your blood to carry oxygen, right? See like things like CO2 poisoning. Something has bound to your blood that's easier to bind than oxygen, right? Stagnant, that was the one that you were missing. G forces. Sat on the toilet too long, avoiding my responsibilities. Now my feet are all tingly, right? Histotoxic, right? This is like smoking, poisons, stuff like that, right? It's my cells have been damaged to a point that they can't use the oxygen by the time it gets to them anyway. Make sense?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, it does.
The reason I drill these is they all have different cures, right? Hypoxia, drop in altitude or supply them pressurized air. Yay, we're happy now. Hypemic, right? Get them away from what's poisoning them. Get them away from what's providing this like other material to bind to their red blood cells. Okay. Stagnant, stretch your legs, right? Stop pulling high Gs. Everyone thinks like, oh, well, this will never happen in my airplane because I fly a stupid little trainer airplane. Your airplane's rated up to 4.4 Gs. I get sleepy at 4.2. All right. So it can happen to you if you go start pulling, if you just try and put this thing at its max. I don't recommend it, obviously. Like 3 is uncomfortable and it's within the limitations of your aircraft.
Yeah.
Right. Histotoxic. This is like that buddy that's an alcoholic that never grew up from college. Right. Their body ain't the way it used to be no more. Okay. What about O2 usage? When is it required for you to start using oxygen?
Yeah, it's required. There's some certain elevations that you need to be at. I'm blanking if it's 12,500 or 13,500. Yeah, I'd have to look up that number.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it goes up to 14,000. The crew is required to have oxygen if you're flying for more than 30 minutes. That like 12,000, 13,500, and 14,000. 14,000 to 15,000. The crew, like operating the aircraft, is required to have supplemental oxygen. And then above 15,000, like everyone, including passengers, is going to be supplied it. And it's interesting, when I read this, I didn't realize it's like the limitation is like you cannot operate the aircraft unless you do these things. Like that's how the Part 91 reads for this one.
I know it's pretty funny. I don't know why they read it. I don't know why they write it like that. A lot of this shit, you're reading it, it's like, wait a minute, that's kind of confusing. I need a law degree to make sure I don't get a pilot deviation.
Lawyer wrote it. It's 12,500 or 13.
It is 12,500, and it's after 30 minutes, right? So does that mean I can go up to 12.6, hang out for 29 minutes, drop down to 11.5, hang out for like 20 minutes, then pop back up to 12.6?
No, it's cumulative time.
Cumulative. Yeah. Awesome. Right. Let's get into let's go to Sky Vector.
Cool.
All right, here we go. We got Sky Vector up. What was the airports again? It was a KILM.
KLM to KEQY.
EQY. Awesome.
There it is.
So you operate inside a Tersa, so you've got all those hard questions knocked out. You know, what is this? It's a Tersa, right? Do I have to talk to somebody when I enter a Tersa airspace?
No, it's optional, but recommended.
Awesome, right? What's this flag?
That's a point that ATC recognizes as like a point that you could be at, and they'll know what it means.
Awesome, right? So Winnebago Airport, like I'm, a beam Winnebago, and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Ooh, what's this?
The camp?
Yep.
CAMP? Well, I know they have one of the old school, like non-directional around the airport. That's what those little magenta dotted things are. Like a pre-VOR.
Yeah.
Before there was VR. Is that camp related to that?
That's the frequency, or the channel. Sorry, that would be the channel. So this is like, it's an AM radio. Believe it or not, It's an AM radio. So if you have an ADF in your airplane, you can actually tune in like AM radio stations and listen to like baseball games and stuff. The only reason I keep my ADF. Now I've got two uncontrolled airports, right? That's why they're purple. They're uncontrolled. Why is this one filled in and this one's empty?
It's the surface. The surface is hard on the one on the right, the filled in one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then that was not like, probably it's going to be a grass or dirt or something.
Right. So no hard surface for the intention of takeoff and landing. Right. Up near me, there's an airport that it's not filled in. Taxiways are paved. Runways aren't. It's up on an island, and they don't want a bunch of jets. So they actually do a really good job maintaining the grass strip, and they even have paved taxiways, but they don't want no damn jets landing there, so they refuse to pave it. It's kind of funny.
I definitely want to land on a soft field. Like we practice them all the time, but I want to go out to one day. I'll probably bring an instructor with me just for the first couple. But yeah, it looks fun.
I don't know if a diamond can, to be honest.
Another reason not to get one.
Yeah. I don't think I would. I mean, diamonds, they're like, they got them spindly little gear. Like, now I'm good. Like,
it flops around even on the hard surface too. It vibrates into the whole plane.
God. That's rough. What's this star right here?
Is that, it's weird. It's not over like, Is that the beacon, the airport beacon? It's got to be.
That is the airport beacon. It's telling you where it's at.
Right.
Right. So if you were looking at this at night, you'd be able to be like, oh, okay, I see the beacon. Runways are in front of it or behind it, depending on which way you're coming from. All right. What's this little star next to this L mean?
That means the lights for the airfield are controlled by like pilots.
All right.
They can be controlled by radios. Yeah.
Well, how long, roughly how long is the longest runway here?
6,500 feet.
Okay. Is there anything here that's not standard pattern?
Yeah, for runway 1323, it's right.
Awesome.
Right hand. RP.
Yep. RP. What airspace is on the ground right here?
On the ground, that's you mind zooming out just a little bit more? Whoa, I've never seen one like that. So if it'll be golf on the ground.
So you remember this dashed one, the dashed magenta one?
It's
echo to the surface.
Echo. Oh, okay.
Right.
I was about to say, okay.
Yep.
Echo to the surface. And then inside the magenta vignette, that's going to be up to 700.
All right. Outside?
Okay. Outside will be 12. Echo starts at 1,200 feet.
Okay.
Outside of the magenta.
Now, what was the initial question I asked?
What airspace are we in?
Okay.
At the surface.
Did I ask about inside or outside or right?
Nope.
You've heard the phrase.
Yeah.
Never miss an opportunity to shut up.
I've been doing okay so far.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yeah, you've been doing pretty good. Here's one other thing that I want to bring up, right? We've been at this for about 2.5 hours at this point. Your noggin's tired, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
This is the time when you tell the DPE, hey, you mind if we take a break?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you go get a glass of water. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I get some more caffeine for
sure. Yeah, me too. I had my one little Americano this morning and all right. What is this? The blue with the dots in it.
That's a wildlife.
Okay. Is there any restrictions associated with this?
They recommend you stay above 2,000 feet there.
Okay. Definitely do so. I know it's only a recommendation, but definitely do so, right? Because if you start overflying this low level and now a bunch of eagles abandoned their nests and a bunch of bald eagles die because of it, who do you think they're going to blame?
They're going to definitely call me.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't piss off the eagles. All right. It's actually kind of weird. Over near me, there's a place that I really like to go land my seaplane that in the 80s, it was a wildlife refuge, but it's not anymore. So I kind of feel bad like landing there, but the water's always so perfect. Like,
that's sad. They removed it.
Yeah, they removed it. They're like, well, and if you go to the DNR's website, they're like, well, it probably still should be. But we ran out of money or something, or like we stopped doing research there. So what's this long purple line that I'm following?
That's the magnetic, the true north.
I mean, it shows me the difference between magnetic north and true north. Do you remember what the line's name is?
No, I just used the number for correcting the what my magnetic heading should be.
All right, it's an isogonic line.
Isogonic, okay.
Awesome that you know what to use it for, but
Isogonic line.
Now, I see this town called Woodlawn, right? A little town right here along what highway? I don't care what highway it is. But then I also see this town right here. Oh, Shiflet. I thought it said Shipfield for a second. So there's Woodlawn, and then there's this other town over here. Why is this one yellow and this one's not?
For like densely populated areas. So
Okay.
there's going to be more people, buildings, cars, roads. Yeah.
It's visible at night.
It's visible at night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's kind of the big takeaway. This is how it's going to look at night. I shouldn't be able to identify woodlawn at night. All right. I don't think it's got anything to do with, it might have something to do with densely populated. The only reason I kind of like to bring it up is there's up near me, there's a town that it's pretty populated. All right. Where to go? Yeah, there's a town right about here. There's a big old town here. A lot of people that live here, a lot of houses here. Doesn't show up at all because it's a nighttime. It's a dark night town. Like they have laws and restrictions about like when you can have lights that point up. Like they even control whether or not people can have like the little lawn lights that point up. Right.
Jeez. Okay.
It's like it's near like a national park or something or some state park. It's like one of the last dark sky parks that is open after night. So you can actually go look and it's dark enough that you can like see the dust in the Milky Way. It's kind of cool. What airspace is this?
Inside the blue.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be Delta.
It is Delta. What do I need to hear to make sure that I can go into this airspace?
You'll just need your like two-way radio communication, so like your tail number acknowledging who you are.
Okay. So if I hear, like if I say McCall Air Force or Airfield or whatever, Cessna 123 request to transition your airspace on the east side. And they respond with Cessna calling, stand by. Is that two-way communication?
They acknowledge that they heard you, but they didn't acknowledge your tail number. I wouldn't say so. I would wait for them to say your tail number and then maybe give me a squawk or something like that if they want.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's not even a matter of like them giving you a squawk. Very, very often they don't even have a radar, so they can't even see you anyway. They're up in their tower with binoculars. Like shit. Yeah.
Hey, I actually I have a work meeting.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're done. Yeah. All right, man. Sorry this took so long. You've done great so far.
I was really happy with the extra time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. You've done great. The only things was we talked about it as it happened, right?
Right. Some of the like the medical aeromedical factors, some of the airspaces, the weather.
Yep.
Yeah, those are ones I've always struggled on. So I'll have to just do the flashcard method, I think.
Yes.
Mentioned, and the emergency procedures.
Yep,
okay.
That was the other one. All right, man. Good luck. This Discord is here. I answer questions in it all the time.
Awesome. I joined it, so thank you. Thank you for setting that all up. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. You have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye now.
All right, bye.